I should have known something was wrong when Victoria Hensley walked into that Beverly Hills casting office wearing a $7,000 Hermes bag, but carrying a resume printed on regular copy paper. It was March 2019, and I was 24, desperate, and exactly 3 months behind on my Studio City rent. The casting call was for a supporting role in an indie film called Midnight Canvas. Nothing glamorous, but it paid scale and could keep me afloat another month in this unforgiving city. Victoria arrived 15 minutes after me, her platinum blonde hair perfectly styled despite the humid Los Angeles morning. She glanced around the waiting room filled with actresses clutching their headshots, and I watched her lips curl into what I can only describe as a predatory smile. "First time auditioning for Marcus Webb?" she asked, settling into the chair beside me. Her voice carried that practiced sweetness that only comes from years of California charm school. I nodded, suddenly feeling underdressed in my thrift store blazer. "You've worked with him before?" "Oh, honey," she laughed, a sound like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "Marcus and I go way back. We met at a party in the Hollywood Hills last summer. Funny how these things work out, isn't it?" The way she said it made my stomach twist, but I pushed the feeling down. This was Hollywood. Everyone knew someone who knew someone. Networking was part of the game. 20 minutes later, Victoria emerged from the casting room with that same smile, now wider. She paused at my chair, leaning down just close enough that I could smell her expensive perfume. "Good luck in there, Maya," she whispered. "Remember, it's not always about talent in this town. Sometimes it's about understanding the business." When I finally got called in, Marcus Webb barely looked up from his phone. He was younger than I expected, maybe early 30s, with the kind of carefully messy hair that cost more to maintain than my monthly grocery budget. "Maya Chen," he said, reading from his notes without making eye contact. "Tell me about yourself." I launched into my prepared monologue about growing up in San Francisco, studying theater at UCLA, the various workshops and small productions I'd done, everything I'd practiced in the mirror of my tiny apartment bathroom. He interrupted me mid-sentence. "Have you done any collaborative work with directors before?" The question hung in the air like smog over the 405 freeway. I felt heat rising to my cheeks as the implications became clear. "I'm sorry. I don't understand what you mean by collaborative work," I said, though deep down, I understood perfectly. Marcus finally looked up, his eyes cold and calculating. Some actresses find it beneficial to be more flexible in their approach to landing roles, building relationships beyond just the audition room. My hands were shaking now, but I kept my voice steady. I believe my work should speak for itself. He shrugged, already dismissing me. "That's your choice. We'll be in touch." I left that office feeling like I needed a shower, my dreams of landing the role already crumbling. But what happened next would change everything, not just for me, but for Victoria Hensley and every other actress who thought she could climb the ladder by stepping on others. 3 days later, I got the call, not from Marcus Webb's casting director, but from Victoria herself. "Maya, darling," her voice was sickeningly sweet through my phone. "I heard you didn't get the part. Such a shame. You seemed so earnest during your audition." I was sitting in my car outside a coffee shop in West Hollywood, having just finished another soul-crushing audition for a commercial. The rejection from Midnight Canvas still stung, especially knowing exactly why I hadn't gotten it. "Thanks for calling," I said flatly. "What do you want, Victoria?" "Oh, don't be like that. I'm actually calling with good news. There's another project, a web series called City Dreams. The producer, David Carlisle, is looking for fresh faces. I thought of you immediately." I should have hung up. Every instinct told me this was a trap, but 3 months of rejections and dwindling savings made me desperate enough to listen. "What's the catch?" I asked. Victoria's laugh tinkled through the phone. "No catch. Well, David is very particular about the actresses he works with. He likes to get to know them personally before casting. Nothing inappropriate. Just dinner, maybe some drinks. You know how it is." What is, Victoria?" "Oh, Maya." Her voice dropped, losing its artificial sweetness. "You're so naive. This is how the industry works. You can either adapt, or you can keep living in that sad little apartment, waiting tables between failed auditions." The line went quiet, except for the sound of traffic on Santa Monica Boulevard. I watched a group of tourists take selfies outside a souvenir shop, their faces bright with the kind of hope I used to have. "I'll think about it," I finally said. "Don't think too long, sweetie. David's attention span is notoriously short, and there are plenty of girls who understand the game better than you do. She hung up before I could respond, leaving me staring at my phone in the fading afternoon light. That's when I made the decision that would change everything. I called her back. "Victoria? I'll do it. Set up the meeting with David." "Wonderful. I knew you'd come around. Friday night, 8 p.m. at Republique. Wear something memorable." But here's what Victoria didn't know. I had no intention of playing their game. Instead, I was going to expose it. I spent the next 2 days researching David Carlisle. 42 years old, married with 2 kids in Malibu, and a producer whose credits consisted mainly of low-budget projects that seemed to feature an unusual number of young actresses who never worked again after their big break. I also did something else, something that would prove crucial later. I reached out to my friend Jamie, a film student at USC who'd been helping me put together a demo reel. Jamie had access to high-quality recording equipment, and more importantly, he had the technical skills to help me document exactly what was happening in Hollywood's shadows. Friday night arrived with typical Los Angeles drama, a sudden rainstorm that turned the city's streets into rivers of brake lights and frustrated commuters. I stood outside Republique in a simple black dress, a tiny recording device hidden in my purse, waiting for David Carlisle. He arrived 20 minutes late, exactly as arrogant as I'd expected. Tall, silver-haired, with the kind of practiced charm that probably worked on 19-year-olds fresh off the Greyhound from Ohio. "Maya, Victoria told me so much about you. You're even more beautiful than she described." We were seated at a corner table, away from the main dining room. David ordered wine without asking what I preferred, then spent the first hour talking about his various projects, name-dropping actors I'd heard of, but who probably didn't remember him. Finally, around dessert, he got to the point. "Victoria mentioned you're very serious about your career," he said, leaning across the table. "That's admirable. But serious actresses understand that success requires certain sacrifices." "What kind of sacrifices?" I asked, though I already knew where this was heading. His hand moved across the table to cover mine. "The kind that happen between consenting adults who understand how business gets done in this town. My penthouse has an incredible view of the city. We could continue this conversation there, get to know each other better." I let him talk for another 10 minutes, his propositions becoming increasingly explicit, all of it captured by the device in my purse. When he suggested we skip coffee and head straight to his place, I finally stood up. "Actually, David, I think I understand perfectly how this works now." His confident smile faltered. "What do you mean?" "I mean that I've recorded everything you've said tonight. Every proposition, every quid pro quo, every detail about how you use your position to exploit actresses." The color drained from his face. "You can't prove anything. It's your word against mine." I smiled, pulling out my phone. "Actually, it's your voice against your voice. And David, I'm not the only one you've done this to." That's when he realized I wasn't just another desperate actress. I was someone who'd decided to fight back. The next morning, I met Victoria for coffee in Beverly Hills. She'd suggested the meeting, claiming she wanted to check in after my dinner with David. What she didn't know was that I'd spent the previous evening doing something that would unravel everything. After leaving David Carlisle sitting alone at Republique with his empty threats, I'd driven straight to Jamie's apartment near USC. We'd spent hours enhancing the audio recording, cleaning up the sound quality until every word was crystal clear. But more importantly, Jamie had helped me create something much bigger than just evidence of one producer's misconduct. "How did it go with David?" Victoria asked, sliding into the booth across from me at a trendy cafe on Rodeo Drive. She was wearing designer sunglasses despite being indoors, her smile as artificial as everything else about her. "Exactly like you knew it would," I said calmly. "Good. I knew you'd finally understand how things work. Did he mention when filming starts for City Dreams?" I studied her face, looking for any sign of genuine humanity beneath the perfectly applied makeup. "Victoria, how many other actresses have you sent to David?" "What do you mean?" But her voice pitched higher, the way people's voices do when they're lying. "I mean, how many other women have you fed to predators like him? How many careers have you helped destroy so you could advance your own?" Victoria's mask finally slipped. Her smile disappeared, replaced by something cold and calculating. "Maya, you need to be very careful about the accusations you make. This is a small industry, and reputations matter." "You're right," I said, pulling out my laptop. "Reputations do matter. That's why I spent last night reaching out to other actresses who've worked with David. Amazing how many of them had similar experiences. I turned the screen toward her. On it was a simple website Jamie and I had built in the early morning hours, Hollywood Truth Project. The homepage featured testimonials from 6 different women, all describing identical encounters with David Carlisle, all describing how they'd been referred to him by the same person, Victoria Hensley. "This is libel," she hissed, her composure completely gone now. "I'll sue you for everything you have." "With what money?" I laughed. "Besides, truth is an absolute defense against libel. And Victoria, I have recordings." Her face went white. "Recordings of what?" "My dinner with David, for starters. Every illegal proposition he made. But also our phone conversation from earlier this week, where you explicitly described the quid pro quo arrangement. California is a 2-party consent state for recording phone calls, but did you know there's an exception when one party is documenting criminal activity?" I could see her mind racing, trying to figure out how much trouble she was in. The answer was, a lot. "What do you want?" she asked finally. "I want you to do exactly what you told me to do. I want you to understand how the industry works." Over the next hour, I laid out my plan. Victoria was going to help me contact every producer, director, and casting agent she'd ever collaborated with. She was going to help document their methods, their threats, their entire network of exploitation. And she was going to do it willingly, because the alternative was having her own recorded confessions released to the press. "You're destroying my career," she said when I finished explaining. "No, Victoria. You destroyed your career the moment you decided to build it on the backs of other women. I'm just making sure everyone knows exactly who you really are." But I wasn't done yet. The Hollywood Truth Project was about to become something much bigger than just exposing Victoria and David. It was about to become a movement. That afternoon, I received a call from someone I'd never expected to hear from, Marcus Webb, the director from my original audition. "Maya, this is Marcus. I saw your website. We need to talk." "I don't think we have anything to discuss," I said. "Actually, we do, because Victoria Hensley isn't the only one who's been feeding actresses to predators in this town. And if you're serious about exposing this system, you're going to need someone on the inside." It turned out Marcus had been documenting the same network I'd stumbled into, but from the other side. He'd been collecting evidence for months, trying to build a case against the producers who'd been pressuring him to cast actresses based on their willingness to collaborate, rather than their talent. "Why didn't you just report them?" I asked during our meeting at a quiet restaurant in Burbank. "Because I tried, 3 years ago. Filed complaints with the studios, reached out to industry organizations. Know what happened? Nothing. They protected each other, and I got blacklisted for 2 years. Marcus had learned to play along while secretly documenting everything. Names, dates, recorded conversations, financial records showing how certain actresses received roles in exchange for private auditions with producers. Victoria Hensley was just one small part of this," he explained. "She was a recruiter, essentially, finding desperate actresses and directing them toward producers who were looking for specific arrangements." "How many producers?" I asked. "At least 12 that I can prove. Probably twice that many who were more careful about covering their tracks." That's when I realized the scope of what we were dealing with. This wasn't just a few bad actors. It was an entire system, a network of exploitation that had been operating openly for years, because no one had ever been willing to challenge it directly. But now someone was, and Victoria Hensley was about to learn exactly what she'd meant when she'd laughingly told me, "That's how the industry works." 6 months later, I stood in the offices of Variety magazine, watching Victoria Hensley's career implode in real time. The Hollywood Truth Project had grown beyond anything I'd imagined. What started as a simple website documenting one producer's misconduct had become a comprehensive database of sexual harassment and quid pro quo arrangements throughout the entertainment industry. We had testimonials from over 40 actresses, recorded conversations with 15 different producers, and documented evidence of a systematic pattern of exploitation. But the story that was about to break was bigger than just individual cases of misconduct. Marcus Webb and I had uncovered something that would reshape how the industry operated. Financial records showing that certain production companies had been essentially running casting calls as escort services, with roles going to actresses willing to provide additional services to investors and producers. Victoria was about to become the face of that scandal. "The article goes live in 20 minutes, said Jennifer Reyes, the Variety reporter who'd been working with us for the past month. "Are you ready for what happens next?" I thought about that question as I watched the bustle of one of Hollywood's most important trade publications preparing to publish the story that would dominate industry headlines for months. Was I ready? 6 months ago, I'd been a struggling actress who couldn't make her rent. Now I was about to bring down a network of predators that had operated with impunity for decades. My phone buzzed. "Victoria. Maya, please. We need to talk before this goes public." I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. "What could we possibly have to discuss, Victoria? I can give you names. Bigger names than David Carlisle. Studio executives. A-list producers. People who make David look like small-time amateur. In exchange for what? Immunity. Keep my name out of the story and I'll give you everything." I looked at Jennifer, who was listening to my side of the conversation. She shook her head firmly. "Victoria, do you remember what you told me that day at the coffee shop? You said reputations matter in this industry." "Maya, please." "You were right. Reputations do matter, and yours is about to reflect exactly who you've always been." The Variety article went live at 3 p.m. Pacific time. Within an hour, it had been picked up by every major entertainment news outlet. By evening, it was trending on Twitter. By the next morning, it was front-page news in the Los Angeles Times. Hollywood's hidden network, how aspiring actresses were systematically exploited by industry insiders, detailed everything we'd uncovered. Victoria Hensley was named prominently as a key recruiter who had connected dozens of actresses with predatory producers. The article included excerpts from our recorded conversations, testimonials from actresses she'd referred to abusive situations, and financial records showing she'd received payment for these referrals. But the story didn't stop with Victoria. 12 producers were named, including David Carlisle. 3 major talent agencies were implicated in facilitating these arrangements. And most damaging of all, the article revealed that certain studio executives had been aware of the network and had chosen to ignore it. Victoria called me 17 times that first day. I didn't answer any of them. The industry response was swift and brutal. David Carlisle was fired from all his current projects within 48 hours. 2 of the talent agencies mentioned in the article announced they were conducting internal reviews of their practices. The Screen Actors Guild issued a statement calling for systemic reform. And Victoria Hensley. Her last role had been a small part in an independent film that was quietly shelved after the story broke. Her social media accounts went dark. The Hollywood Reporter published a follow-up piece titled, "The Fall of Victoria Hensley, From Rising Star to Industry Pariah." But the most satisfying moment came 2 weeks later, when I received a call from an unknown number. "Maya, this is Christina Walsh." I recognized the name immediately. Christina was an actress who'd been one of Victoria's early referrals to David Carlisle, 3 years before I'd ever heard either of their names. "I saw the article," Christina continued. "I want you to know that what you did, it gave me my life back. For 3 years, I thought what happened to me was normal, that it was just the price of trying to make it in Hollywood. Reading those other women's stories, knowing I wasn't alone, it changed everything." Christina had been 18 when Victoria referred her to David. She'd endured months of abuse, been promised roles that never materialized, and eventually left Los Angeles entirely, convinced she wasn't talented enough to succeed. "I'm moving back," she said. "I'm going to audition again, but this time I know it's different. Because of what you did, it's different." That's when I realized the true impact of what had happened. This wasn't just about punishing Victoria Hensley or David Carlisle or any of the other predators we'd exposed. It was about changing the fundamental power dynamics that had allowed this system to exist in the first place. Victoria had laughed and told me, "That's how the industry works." She was right. That was how it worked. Past tense. Because now the industry would remember her name, all right. Not as a successful actress who climbed the ladder by stepping on other women, but as the cautionary tale that helped change everything. As for me, I never did get cast in Midnight Canvas, but 6 months after the Variety article published, I was hired as a consultant by the newly formed Industry Ethics Board, helping to develop policies that would prevent what happened to me from happening to anyone else. And every morning when I wake up in my new apartment, one I can actually afford, I think about Victoria's words. She was absolutely right about one thing. Reputations matter in this industry, which is exactly why hers will never recover.